Today, members, House File 998, Representative Schultz is the first one. I will move that House File 998 be recommended to pass and be re-referred to the Committee on Taxes. Representative Schultz, I don't know if you heard a last minute a decision that this bill needed to go to taxes. So that's included in my motion. Representative Schultz, to your bill.
Thank you, Chair Houseman and members of the committee. House File 998 amends the Workforce and Affordable Home Ownership Development Program to allow the Commissioner of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to provide loans in addition to grants for workforce and affordable home ownership projects. The bill establishes a Workforce and Affordable Home Ownership Development account in the Housing Development Fund to provide supplemental funding for the program. So during fiscal years 2022 to 2032, the Commissioner of Revenue must annually deposit any incremental amount from the mortgage registry tax and the deed tax into the account. And the increment is calculated as the amount in excess of the total amount of the registry and deed tax proceeds collected in the prior fiscal year. This bill was initially brought forward and drafted by Representative Fabian, the original underlying language, to establish the fund and the program in 2016. It has bipartisan support in the House, and Senator Senjum is carrying it in the Senate. And I'd like to introduce my first speaker, which I think is Jeff Corey.
We have two testifiers, Jeff Corey, One Roof Community Housing from Duluth. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you kindly. Jeff Corey, Executive Director at One Roof Community Housing.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'll lead my comments in three directions this morning. One, a very brief overview of One Roof, where we are and how this connects to the bill. A bit of talk about the coalition of groups that are asking for or supporting this bill, and then just a little bit about the sort of the why of the bill in terms of where we're coming from with the push from the community. So One Roof is a nonprofit affordable housing organization, community-based. Our offices are in Duluth. We serve Duluth and surrounding communities from Cloquet all the way up to Grand Marais. We do a full range of different affordable homeownership work or affordable housing work, from homeownership development, loans to improve housing, multifamily housing development projects that are for the local workforce, as well as for folks that are experiencing homelessness, homebuyer education and counseling. And we also do tenant landlord education, problem solving and mediation. So soup to nuts, most of the things a group could do in affordable housing we're involved in up here. Why we do that work is because the housing market, frankly, is a challenging thing for folks that are of lower incomes. And so we like to say that we make home a better place. All of the things that we do are geared toward doing that, so that folks that we serve have a stable place to call home, so that platform, that can be a platform from them to be able to go out into the world and perform at their jobs in better ways, perform at school, be active in their communities. If we all think of what it would be like to not have a stable home and how we would function day to day if we didn't know that we were going to be able to stay there. Home is really sort of like food, like shelter, like clothing, in terms of people's ability to just function in our communities. And so that's what we're about. And in our community of Duluth and surrounding areas, home ownership is super important because our housing stock is generally smaller in size and more suitable to being ownership housing. The fabric of our neighborhoods look like that. And so while we do larger multifamily projects, it's very important that we're also advocating for taking care of our existing stock and adding housing units into the fabric of those neighborhoods that fit in and that work for the folks that live here in our service area. The Homeownership Minnesota group is a broad coalition of folks that spans the state in terms of service area, and what we do is all quite similar in terms of we're all working on various homeownership endeavors, affordable homeownership endeavors. So Habitat Minnesota, which has 20 some members, is part of our coalition. Twin Cities Habitat is Powderhorn Residents Group, a couple of community land trusts, Dayton's Bluff NHS, the North Country Cooperative Foundation that does manufactured housing work. These are just a sample. The Homeownership Center of Minnesota, all of these groups are part of advocating for what we're looking for in terms of increased investment for homeownership, affordable homeownership in Minnesota. Our previous progress with this particular initiative is that there has been some funding appropriated. In 2016, $750,000 was appropriated to the program. The first round was ridiculously oversubscribed in terms of the applications for the amount of funding that was available. Recently, we managed to get another appropriation and then to get $250,000 in the base. We're working collectively with this group to increase homeownership investment to 30 million or higher per year, so that we can actually serve the demand that exists in our communities. And my colleague Jeff Washburn, who will speak in a bit, we'll talk a bit more about that. So the idea of capturing the growth in the mortgage registry and deed tax is a pretty simple one, really. As that revenue source grows, the notion is it grows because of real estate transactions that happen, and we would use that growth that happens incrementally each year to invest in affordable homeownership. So homeownership for folks who wouldn't, but for our efforts, have an opportunity to buy a home of their own. And so it's kind of I think really a wonderful source from which to create a resource to help other folks buy a home. Is if the housing market is booming, take a little bit of that growth that happens and divert that to help folks who aren't as fortunate be able to buy homes of their own. So that's kind of the thinking behind it. And thank you kindly for allowing me to speak this morning.
We have this large amount of federal money coming in that second COVID bill. Right now, the language still has that limited to rental assistance. I think we all need to keep lobbying our representatives in Washington to make that more flexible so that we can call it housing assistance as opposed to rental assistance. So we can do some work there. We are now joined by Jeff Washburn, City of Lakes Community Land Trust. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Chair Hausman. My name is Jeff Washburn, Executive Director with the City of Lakes Community Land Trust in Minneapolis. Thank you as well, members, for the opportunity to speak to this item. The City of Lakes Community Land Trust is a community land trust that serves the city of Minneapolis proper. Over the past 18 years, we've now been able to assist 430 households achieve home ownership in Minneapolis through over 330 properties. We're coming up on close to our 100th resale, and those 100 resales occurred without having to invest additional affordability investments to keep those homes affordable. And surely that's the beauty of the community land trust model. On average, while we're allowed to serve households up to 80% of median income, we serve households on average at 51% of median income, and 56% of the households that we serve are community of color households in the city of Minneapolis. We've benefited from over $13 million of state of Minnesota investments over the last 18 years, creating those affordable ownership opportunities. So a lot has been done through state investments and definitely leveraged with local and other sources of affordability and rehab assistance on properties. Like Mr. Corey, I just want to talk to a couple of items today. One is just to really put a hard point on the racial disparities that exist in the state. I'd like to talk about the need and specifically the need for ownership, affordable home ownership investments here in the state of Minnesota. What would we be able to do with added investments in affordable home ownership in the state, and then just kind of talking about the impact that we're seeing here in this most recent housing market. I've been going pretty deep on kind of researching where we were, where we are, and I'm pretty blown away when I see that the home ownership disparity gap is actually worse today than it was in 1980 in the state of Minnesota. And when you look at that time, less or just a titch over 3% of the state's population were households of color. Now we're sitting at close to 21%. And so the problem has gotten worse in the sense the disparity is worse, but also just the magnitude when we're talking about the sources are going to be needed to solve for this disparity for over 20% of the state's population is a much bigger thing that we need to work on if we're really serious about making a dent in this huge disparity that exists. Kind of coinciding with that, over the last 9 years, through the state's annual impact award funding round, roughly 4.2% of those awards have gone to affordable ownership. And that's varied anywhere between $7 and $14 million a year, with an average of about $10 million a year. What we're trying to do is just say, yes, it's a sizable investment, but even by tripling that amount, it still would be a fraction of what the Housing Finance Agency invests in affordable home ownership on an annual basis as it relates to their awards. And we could easily double or triple the amount of affordable home ownership that we create in the state. This would have a huge impact, as Mr. Corey mentioned, in that our membership scattered across the state as well serves households of color at on average, compared to the relative geographies that each of our organizations serve, at a rate of about 6 times that of the current ownership rate in those geographies. So really, just by creating that opportunity to invest more in our organizations, we feel that we could start to make some incremental impact on this disparity that exists in the state. Yes, it's a significant asset we have before this committee in the state, but relative to all the other investments, if we're really serious about solving some of these real challenges, we think that this is a very viable solution. And estimating that the funds that would come from this ask would be a part of how we would get to increasing the on average of about $10 million invested in affordable home ownership production, to increase that to $30 million. Hopeful that maybe $10 million a year on average could be generated through this mortgage registry and deed tax from the state. This year already, at our organization, we're seeing over 50 attendees at our home buyer education orientations. The most recent home that we listed in South Minneapolis had 18 applications in for that property. And there's a number of hoops that fortunately or unfortunately that are in place for our buyers, but buyers have to put in an application. They have to attend first-time home buyer education. They have to attend one of our orientations. They have to be mortgage pre-approved before that's considered a viable application. And there are 18 low-income households vying for just that one property. The need is huge, and I think all of our organizations are feeling the pressure of dozens of households who would love the opportunity to do better for themselves and their families if they had that opportunity. Housing is a means to a much bigger goal of creating stability for households, creating the space for folks to take care of themselves and their families, and to start to think about what's going to come up next in their lives so that they can do better for themselves. And we truly do believe that home ownership has to be part of that affordability continuum. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, do we have any questions of either the author or our two testifiers? Mr. Worth, any hands up?
Yes, Madam Chair, Representative Olson has a question.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Schultz, for bringing this bill forward. It's good to see you, Jeff Corey from Duluth, sharing about some of the things I was going to mention about our needs in Duluth in terms of our housing stock and the tools we need at our disposal here to ensure affordable home ownership. And so I'm glad to see this bill coming forward. I think it's a nice blend of talking about what the testifiers mentioned around, our racial home ownership gap, which is huge in all parts of the state, and this being a tool to work on that, as well as the tools mentioned that we need here in Duluth in terms of the housing stock we have, and some of the things that currently we have at our disposal aren't really fitting the bill for what we need. So it's good to see this bill coming forward. And I think my question is actually going to be if Minnesota Housing is here and would be willing to field the question. I think it's more to them. But my thought and question, I know in this committee we talk about the vast needs of kind of the entire continuum of making sure people have stable housing, affordable housing being a piece of this home ownership, being a piece of this affordable home ownership. So I'm wondering if MHFA would just be willing to comment about what kind of their work in seeing this tool and, how we're going to be expanding and growing access to affordable home ownership as kind of part of the agency's work in this. As I know, the funding appropriated to this is meant to supplement traditional funding, and not replace them. And just wondering if the agency could speak to any of that.
I know Mr. Baumtrag is probably on because he's testifying later. Mr. Baumtrag?
Hi, good morning, Chair Hausman. Ryan Baumtrag, Assistant Commissioner for Policy and Community Development at Minnesota Housing. And Representative Olson, while the agency can't support the bill that's in front of you today because of it's not being in the governor's budget, the governor does have an increase. The highest percentage to the governor's budget for housing is to this program. And so I think that's an indication that the governor supports and the agency supports more resources for affordable home ownership development. As the testifiers mentioned, this is a program that received a one-time appropriation before, was significantly oversubscribed. Then we've received funding in the base, but it's $250,000 a year, and we know the needs are significant, and we know a lot of developers and communities across the state didn't apply because the funding pot was so low, and so we're looking for ways to increase that. So that is, this program is a part of the governor's overall $14 million increase to the agency's base budget.
Representative Olson, follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was what I was hoping for. And I know we never want to take anything away to, we need to focus on the entire continuum, but I'm glad to see this focus on affordable home ownership as a piece that we're talking about today. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Worth, other questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, Representative Tice has her hand up.
Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, probably, well, just another comment. Having heard, oh my goodness, Representative Schultz talk about Representative Fabian, we've been working on this for a long time. And what we see, and in fact, I was stopped today and asked about workforce housing because we just aren't seeing it. And that's going to be a big game changer when we start looking at what that's going to mean for our different communities when they're starting to get back from this COVID and start opening up and expanding businesses. We just don't have the housing, and we don't have housing from unaffordable to first time to basically multi-housing, so that we can just get people into our communities and then get them into a home from there. Obviously, talking to Mayor Fabian, his goal is mostly just to get them there to check the joint out, because not everybody loves all different places. And so we're also looking for some multi-housing as well. I'm not sure if money is included with this, and I'm sure that it is because just the nature of it. I didn't see it expressly, but I've been looking at a lot of different things this morning. We need to continue to fight on this. I'm hearing we just don't have workforce housing. We don't have workers. And I think that also goes into the affordable housing too. In St. Cloud, we've got the gamut on a much smaller scale, and we have a lot of folks working on it. But goodness, we've got a lot of businesses that are really struggling to figure out how they're going to go forward, pandemic or not, because we don't have the housing that they've needed for the last, pick a number, 8 years. And we need to get serious about this. And I'm glad to see that Representative Schultz has this here again. We need to do this. We need to continue to do this until we can finally get it over the finish line. And I think we can do it this year because there is a great need. We know there's a great need, and I think everybody else knows it too. So thank you, Representative Schultz, for bringing this forward. I'm excited for it because I'm hearing about it in St. Cloud. I'm hearing it from a lot of different people that we just don't have the housing, whether it be the city planner, realtors, or anybody just looking for a home. So we really have to do some great work on this, and I think this is part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yesterday, I met with Cook County, and they wanted to talk about their needs in their part of the state for workforce housing. And we talked about Representative Erdahl's bill, which we heard early in the session. And you may recall, he had an amendment that he offered, increasing the amount in his bill to $3 million. And what Cook County said yesterday is they could use 3 million just in Cook County. And so that's the those are the issues we have. Mr. Worth, other members.
Madam Chair, there are no other member questions at this time.
Okay. Representative Schultz, do you have final comments?
Just want to thank my testifiers for being here today and for advocating for this legislation. I also will note, members, that this language was included in the tax bonding omnibus bill last session, but was taken out at the last moment, and 4 million was appropriated for this program. And this program is really important. You know, it's very much overprescribed, so there's definitely a lot of demand. And also just to note that this would at least double the number of home ownership units funded annually without diverting any of the funds currently from resources for rental housing. So members, I'm looking for your support and hope we can get it done this session. So thank you for hearing the bill, Chair Houseman and members.
Thank you. I will renew my motion that House File 998 be recommended to pass and be re-referred to the Committee on Taxes. Mr. Wilcox, please take the roll.
Houseman,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Tice,
Aye.
Agbaje,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Gomez,
Aye.
Hassan,
Aye.
Heinrich,
Aye.
Hurd,
Aye.
Jurgens,
Excuse me, Jurgens, aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Flard,
Aye.
and Dreyer.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that is 13 ayes and 0 nays.
There being 13 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails and the bill is referred. Thank you for coming.